You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get on there now. It was a dramatic day at the courts on Tuesday when officials of the Nigerian Correctional Service and operatives of the Department of State Services engaged in a face-off over the custody of the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. This happened shortly after Justice Nicholas Oweibo of the Federal High Court in Lagos admitted Mr. Emefiele to a bail in the sum of 20 million naira. The Nigerian Bar Association and many other Nigerians condemned the scuffle between the two agencies. In a statement by President of the NBA, Yakubu Meikeu, stated that the altercation between officers of the two government agencies on the premises of the Federal High Court in Lagos is a recipe for anarchy and chaos, and called on both agencies to take immediate disciplinary measures against the officers involved in the conduct. All right, that's the crux of our discussion this morning. Joining us in the studio to talk more on this is a lawyer and social development advocate, Olutunbosun Oshifowora. It's nice to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure.
Right, I know you must have followed this development, and Nigerians said that it was an embarrassment to the country on one hand, as much as both agencies of government have their duties to carry out, but that there was a court order. But the point there is a situation where two agencies, mature agencies, in their respect, they were entities recognized by law, couldn't sit down to say, how do we go about it? This is how we want it, and that's how you want it. How do we resolve this so that everything moves on well? Where it degenerated to the level where there were, manhandling of each other. Senior officers of the agencies, it was seriously an embarrassment. I wonder what your interpretation of this is.
No, it was not a palatable sight, and also, this is not the first time we're seeing something like this where sister agencies will be at, loggerheads, but this just took a more, maybe for want of a better word, it just took a turn that was not particularly nice for the eyes and for the image of the country. And I've been on different platforms, I've seen different debates, and some people were like, say, as long as it's Emefiele, we will take this one exception. No, but you see, the fact is this, it may be Emefiele today, it's going to be another person tomorrow. We owe ourselves the duty to be decent and to do things properly. I was telling someone yesterday that I think the DSS has a point, but they were just being procedurally lazy. That was what actually led to the scuffle. And we could break it down, and this is how it is. Everybody is suspicious of the prison system in Nigeria. No disrespect to those who are actually going about their duty very well. Now, but you see, the thing is this, we've had all kinds of cases where people have access to things that they shouldn't have access to in
within the correctional
centers, which is not supposed to be, and sometimes which is even a breach of security. Now, but for certain reasons, the system seems to be very porous, and the DSS knows, they feel and they know that it would, allowing Emefiele to go to the prisons with the porous system, it will give him access to certain things that may impede their investigation. Now, but if that is the case, you have a lawyer who stands for you in court. The best thing the DSS or the prosecution could have done in that case was to ask the judge that, say, let him be remanded in our custody pending the perfection of his bail. That is the simplest and most decent thing to do. And when that happens, I don't think the judge, depending on how you canvass your situation, the judge is aware of what goes on in the prisons. I say this with all sense of respect and decency. Now, but the judge is aware that investigation may be scuttled if you allow him go in this direction. If you make that simple application, I don't think the judge would say no. And then he goes back to your custody. Now, these are, like you said in the intro, they're senior officers. The DSS is almost like the highest security point in the nation. And even if the man has done the most unforgivable sin, I think the best thing to do in that regard is you have brought him to the court, then finish the business in the court.
Okay,
Not do it, taking it outside, and the way it panned out, it wasn't nice.
On Tuesday, when this case was heard in court, that argument that you just brought in now was presented by the Federal Government's Counsel, because TVC was there, and I had the opportunity to be there in the courtroom. That argument was made. The Federal Government's Counsel asked the court to retain him, to order that he be retained at the DSS facility. But of course, the lead defense counsel didn't want that, and the court granted the defense request that he be transferred to the corrections facility instead. So that's part of the uproar, that's part of the condemnation, that there was a standing order. Your request at the federal government had already been rejected. So why would the DSS go on with this? But then there is talk, though not confirmed, that the DSS says it has a court order from another court, an order from another court granting them the right to arrest Mr. Emefiele, and that was what they stood on and dragged till the end.
All right. Given what you have just said, now when the court, now bail is at the discretion of the court, though discretion is also within the law. Now, but the thing is this, where the court didn't accede to your request to remand him in your facility, then you're supposed to follow the law. Now, that's one. Then the second part of it is that even if you have another warrant for another thing he's done, I think decency speaks to the fact that you present it to those who have custody by order of court at that point, because immediately the court says, let him be remanded, it's a pronouncement of the court, and it's sacrosanct. So what you do in that instance is either the best thing to do was to give it to whoever is in charge of the head of the prison wardens, and then or at that point, or I think the officer in charge, then you give him that this is what we have, maybe it's the next court we're taking him to, and all that. Like I said, I think they were just being lazy, because they could have gone about it better than this. And then the people at the court on that day were not junior ranking officers that you excuse on the basis that they don't know what they're doing, or they don't understand protocols. Now, so I think it was a case of ego and also trust and mistrust. And that's basically what played out there. Because for me, I think that setting a wrong precedent is not good for the polity, and it's not good for the image of the country. At least we have stepped into a new era, and people feel that, okay, people are a bit optimistic. But when they begin to see things play out like they used to see it, then they just go like, I think it's just business as usual. And that is enough to dissipate people's hopes. I know the average Nigerian, given what happened some 8-9 months ago, does not like Emefiele. But this is not about Emefiele. It's about the country. It's about the system. And, we've always advocated and canvassed for, building proper institutions. Because at the end of the day, people will cite these cases. And let me allude to something they say in local parlance, that somebody who wants to go and bury his senior brother naked should not take his younger brother along, because he will bury you the same way that you have done. He will think that is how it is. And so another day, if this happens, they will cite this, that if DSS did it, then we too can do it. Then who knows what agency? It can be customs tomorrow. And they will tell you that we also have another warrant. So the issue of another warrant is not in question. It is decency that we should look at. And that was thrown to the bin. But at the same time, I tell you, in as much as I'm not holding brief for the DSS, they understand what they were doing. But I think they just didn't go the full hog in expressing themselves properly to warrant that he be taken back to their custody. So, but that's my own position on it.
All right. Well, talking about precedences, the point there is, this is not the first time the DSS is clashing with sister agencies. You recall the one with the EFCC in the past. They have clashed with the police sometime, a few years. So it's been several instances that one can cite to say, okay, the DSS has clashed with different sister agencies here and there. When it comes to the rules of engagement, when it comes to the standards or the law, can there be a law to put everybody in check regarding whatever it is that you need to do as an institute? Because the officers of the DSS that were in court that day, of course, they were acting on instructions. It wasn't them deciding we are going to the court because we don't like this man or because we want to prove a point. It was an instruction. The moment an instruction comes out, it becomes an institutional instruction. It becomes a backing of the law, as the case may be. So speak to us from that perspective. What change would there be if there is a law, a rule or something?
We have the laws. The laws are there. They understand the hierarchy. But I think it was a case of ego, trust and mistrust. So these are senior officers that they can't tell you they don't know the law or they don't know the hierarchy and they don't know how things pan out. And I saw a video where I think, I saw it, I think on social media where Emefiele was apprehensive of going outside and, the prison people were telling him, the prison officials were telling him that, don't worry, we will take care of this and all that. I mean, that speaks to the mistrust of DSS. and we all know what goes, I mean, by my practice, I know what goes on in prison. I'm not here to castigate them. But you see, whatever mistrust you have, whatever ego you have, should be subsumed under national interest. Whatever panned out that day, they were just a few seconds away from literally, shooting themselves.
Exactly.
And that would then, my own grouse, maybe because of my profession, the fact that happened within a court premises, for me, is an aberration. It's not there that you do that kind of thing.
You were talking about the issue of the condition of prisons, but the assumption sometimes from the comments we've heard is that there are VIP sections for people like that where you don't just throw everyone into the same.
I don't know how much
that's why I use the word assumption.
I don't know how much you're permitted to say that, but it does happen. Okay. It does happen, and our prison systems are quite porous. I mean, and sometimes you see things that shouldn't really happen. And I think this is one of the things also that the authorities should look at, because there shouldn't be any form of distrust from a sister agency. It was looking like like the kind of squabble you find in a polygamous setting.
Exactly.
And everybody trying to prove, oh, my mother is the first wife. We have this. It was a show of shame. I'm not going to lie. But I understand very much where DSS is coming from. But I think they could have managed it much better than they did. They didn't. That's why I said they were being procedurally lazy, because there's a way you canvass your issues before the judge. But I think also, depending on how, Milord also looked at it, that you people have come again, you guys have, how you have been doing your things, and this time around, no, let things be done properly. Because the ideal place, that's an exception, really, when you say somebody should be remanded in EFCC custody, pending perfection of bail or DSS custody. The appropriate place to go by law is once you've been granted bail, and before you perfect the bail, you are to go to the nearest correctional facility to the court. Now, which in that instance was Ikoyi Correctional Facility, and the judge, the prison officials have acted within the law. Now, but DSS also, they have come up to say that this is something of national interest. And then the average person is interested in Emefiele's case and how it pans out. I mean, we're all here, we all know what went down. But like I said in the intro, it's not about Emefiele, because if you try this and you allow it to slide, it could be me tomorrow. Yeah. It could be you tomorrow. It could be anybody.
Absolutely.
And then the image for the country it didn't speak too well.
And this issue of custody, or who should take custody, you know, just makes me recall another case where it was an issue of the defendant saying they want to remain in EFCC custody, that they don't want to go to the regular.
That's another.
But the EFCC counsel said, no, we are done with you. You've been arraigned. move out. But they were trying to make a fine case, and the court bought EFCC's arguments. You've been arraigned, you've granted bail. You've been granted bail. Go to the regular prison.
That speaks to the fact that the correctional facilities actually need some rejigging.
I think the picture that can be painted, you know, sorry for being different. It sounds funny, but it's a serious issue.
That's the reality. You know, this is the first time.
They are custodies.
This is the first time. You know, like Kevin said earlier, and which is almost a daily practice, because particularly the EFCC correctional facility. I mean, no, they have a detention. A mini detention facility
right.
where, you know, pending investigation, they keep the suspects. Most people, because it's more comfortable, and then it's not prison. You know,
exactly.
There's this social,
the psychological
understanding that, prison, no, nobody even wants to come and, you know, identify with prison now. So the average person always wants to stay in all these agencies, facilities that, you know, our lawyers, we've all done it. And most people who practice, particularly who do criminal law, they always ask that, my lord, please, we would, in the alternative, that let the defendant be in EFCC custody, let him be here, because they know the prison. So this is the first time somebody is opting to go to the prison. And my lord, no, let me go. So definitely something is amiss, because it's not preposterous, but it is preposterous based on practice, because you always want to stay in the more familiar and more comfortable place. But I don't think anybody wants to stay with DSS.
I remember JB Dowd, the lead counsel, said, our love affair with DSS, let it end now. Take us out.
So I mean, for the first time, the prison is now more attractive.
Exactly.
to the suspect.
All right. Now, yesterday we were also talking about the issue of this argument or this debate of national security versus the rule of law. Recall that under former President Buhari, there was this issue of what does the rule of law say regarding the issue of Dasuki, where he's supposed to be subjected through or pass through the court system. The court has said, let this man go, at least on bail or whatever the thing is. But there was the issue of, oh, no, there are national security issues of concern. And it created debate. Of course, that debate, nobody has won it. Of course, it's not the issue of we win, you lose situation, but it is the issue of making Nigerians understand. Because from the perspective of the court, an average person will say, well, when the court speaks, if there is an injunction or a judgment from the court, whoever you are, even if you are the president, you have to obey it. If there are dynamics around national security, it should be presented to say, okay, because of this and because of that. Anyway, I'm not a lawyer, but you are here to enlighten us in that regard.
All right. Let the truth be told. There's nothing above rule of law. In fact, if you want a society to go well, and you want things to all go well for any society, I mean, the society rises and falls on the rule of law. But you see, let's be clear also, there are exceptions. In certain cases. When something becomes a case of national security, the other leg of the argument is that if there is no security, rule of law itself can't stand. If the order is that once you finish here, you go this way. And everybody, you know, once we finish this program, you have to go and follow a particular route. That's the order. And then that will make for easy presentation and things will go well. But if there is a prevailing situation like fire or like something happens, you know, at that point, safety is what counts. You don't want to start following protocols when you know fire is staring you in the face or something ugly is coming. And then so sometimes you have to suspend certain protocols for things to go well. But the thing is this, over time, people have bastardized what is in national interest and what is of national security. Now, because some people will tell you that how much threat is somebody of Emefiele status while he's in custody of a DSS to warrant him being something that would create such, level of threat to the nation. At this level, things can still be done and we can still follow, what should be followed. And not, you don't want to make a monster or make a storm out of a teacup in this situation. So, but basically what I've explained is that it takes rule of law for any society to go well. But there are instances where certain rules are suspended in national interest, particularly in matters that has to do with national security. And then in that instance, there's a temporary suspension of law. We cannot wish it away, and we don't have to go academic. If we want to do the academic exercise, we'll tell you it's rule of law or nothing.
But in your opinion, is this a case where the rules should have been suspended for the sake of national security?
It is the DSS that is better placed to tell us how much of a national security issue the Emefiele saga is. Now, but unfortunately, it's not something they will bring to the public to debate. But they have superiors which they can actually canvass the points. But because it's their job and they're saddled with that responsibility and they know what it is, and over time they have been proven at what they do, if they tell you something is of national interest or not, it's a threat to national security, I guess with the benefit of hindsight, you will have to allow it to slide. And then if they say so, then it is so. And I'll quickly point your attention to, you remember the accusation against Condoleezza Rice for that 9/11 thing. They literally said she wished it away. That, no, it's not, how can somebody fly? And, it was almost something impossible. So sometimes, some things that can look so simple can turn out to, not for public good. And they will go like, we warned you.
Right.
We told you this. It's our job. We saw it.
But the DSS spokesperson, I don't know if you've seen it, but, you seem to be, like you must have seen it, but I could be wrong. DSS has said, as far as it is concerned, it didn't break any law. It stands by its, its mandate to ensure national security is safeguarded and that it respects all sister agencies and the judiciary. But now it has acknowledged that there may have been some part of overzealousness by the officers from both agencies. That's also a line that the NBA president is towing, because he too has released his own statement saying that those officers, involved in the saga should be investigated. But do these, reactions address the situation at hand?
Like I said, if the DSS says it's of national importance, thank you, it's of national importance or it's a threat to national security, you can't argue with them on it. Now, but could they have been more circumspect in their dealings? Yes. Whatever it is, whatever threat Emefiele had posed to the nation up until that point, they could have managed the situation better. That image is not going to go. That image is there forever. Everybody has it. It doesn't speak well for the nation. It doesn't speak, whatever, even if the person was coming to kill the #1 citizen. There's a way you could take out things. There are things they do that we don't see. It's only them that they know how they operate. Now, but that show is not justifiable. It's not. Nobody's going to stop them from what they're doing. Nobody is saying Emefiele is not what they have said he is, but they could have done this better. They could have called themselves the security agents. They're not yourself and I. That, you could tell me some things and I'll go like, I'll put my legal logic cap on and I'll go, no. It doesn't fall. But you guys are security men. You understand this thing. You could have called yourself together. One phone call, give this phone to this person, would have saved the day and saved the nation that embarrassment. So nobody's ruling out the fact that it's of national importance. It's a question of national security. But that show could have been better managed than they did. Anything could have, there were lawyers, there were civilians there. We've seen stray bullets, we've seen, accidental discharges in different instances that wasn't even up to that level of fracas. So if they had killed someone, you think people would listen to it? Would dent their image. Now, so nobody is stopping the DSS. Nobody can stop the DSS from doing their job and carrying out their job. They work while we're sleeping. They do a lot of things. They work for us, and nobody will stop them from doing that. But I think it's time they sat down and managed, some of the things. It's beginning to look like, it's you every day kind of thing. I'm trying to use the Yoruba, the Yoruba understanding. Come, it's only you now every day. Like no. I think they can be circumspect in their dealings and then prevent this. It's the number one security institution in the country, and much is expected of them.
Well, it's okay. Now, okay, I understand we have to go now. I was going to ask a question, but my producer said we need to go now because of time. But we must thank you so much, Olutunbo Osifowara, for your time on the program. Thank you for giving us insight into all of these. It's really important. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Right.